what is happening with SBT?
So I think there's a few things here. One is there was already a fair bit of tension associated with the SBT and with SBT targets, mostly related to how offsets or certificates of various sorts are accounted for. In addition to that, what we've seen is two shifts happening. One is that more and more companies were starting to appreciate and realize that the target that science would require is a very difficult target for their business. And so over the course of last year, you kind of saw this backsliding of companies running late to share their updated SBT information, or pulling out formally or otherwise, or running behind. In addition to that, you obviously now have significant political developments, such as the US pulling out of the Paris Agreement again. And so that's a signal really that not being aligned with science is okay. And so I would say that the combination of those things, to my mind, puts a lot of weight and a lot of pressure on the relationships that most companies have had or might have had with SBT or SBTs.
I think this, though, comes into the whole framework of like, how do you actually set a good target? Do you want to set stretch targets and ambitious targets, or do you want to set realistic targets? Because yes, science might be ambitious and might be hard to reach, but that is, maybe that is the North Star that you want to have to kind of get the momentum and level of ambition that you want. So is it more of a question of how, as a company, you like to set targets?
I think the dividing line, really, if there is one, is, are you solving for what is good for the world, or are you solving for what is good for your business? And I think that within the sustainability community of practitioners, we tend to have this odd marriage of two types of factions. One is the almost like the anti-capitalists, those of us who really want to try and get the business community aligned with where we think it needs to be from a not quite a moral perspective, but a scientific perspective, really. Like we feel that the business community needs to own some element, its share of the global target and the global commitment. There's another group that is more like, let's say, the business pragmatists. And on that side of the fence, we think that business needs to do what makes the most sense for business and what is in the long-term interest of business. And there's obviously an overlap here between these two sustainability camps. If you're in the former camp, you're more likely to think that a company has an obligation to set a science-based target, and that science is the only real measure or yardstick against which such targets should be measured. Is the target something that is in line with what science says we need to maintain a 1.5 degree scenario, for example? If you're in the latter camp, where you're actually on the business pragmatist side, then I would say the target needs to be as high as it needs to be for your business value to materialize, and no higher, because the target is gonna cost, incremental points on the target is just gonna cost you more money. If you look at the cost curve of all the things you could be doing, at a certain point, everyone's curve exhausts the stuff that makes you money and goes into the stuff that spends money or costs you money. And so overachievement is not really in any business's interest.